Obtaining 10x rewards. Reincarnated into a novel as a side character. By Winterdragon_1. Chapter 151. It's finally their turn. Daniel could not help but feel a little overwhelmed as he stared at the elder, who was looking at both of them with a calm expression. The air seemed heavier under Sigfor's gaze, each second stretching into an eternity. His mind worked, trying to comprehend the vast difference in their powers. Every fiber of his being was trying to understand the chasm that separated them. He gulped, realizing how rude he might have been to such a powerful person. However, on second thought, the elder was indeed quite annoying, so he quickly discarded the growing admiration. He shook his head slightly, pushing away the fleeting respect. He asked the elder, what was that move just now? It was an exorcism technique focused on destruction and offense. Could you teach it to me? Daniel, who heard the elder's words, instantly threw everything to the back of his mind and asked with a pleading expression. His voice wavered, a mix of eagerness and desperation. His eyes shone with desperate hope. If he could learn something this powerful, then... Just imagining it made him clench his fists. No. However, Sigfor's flat rejection instantly shattered his wild imaginings. What? Why though? He could not understand. His fists unclenched, frustration etched on his face. His face flushed with anger and confusion. The technique is not suitable for your rank right now. You would need to have at least 5 times the aspera you currently have to even dare to think of using this technique. It's just this demanding and destructive. Not to mention the extreme control it requires. Given your bearings, I would not be surprised if you blow yourself up the moment you try. Sigfor plainly commented, making Daniel grit his teeth. He was determined to learn this in the future. Also, your clan should have a more suitable version of this technique, so ask them when you return. My element does not work similarly to yours, he added further. I understand. Can I ask the name of this technique? Crane beam. Now go back to your position. Sigfor dismissed him quickly. His tone was final, leaving no room for argument. Daniel, having learned the name of the technique, made a note to himself to ask his father to teach it to him later on. Determination burned in his eyes as he returned to his place. His mind was already planning the next steps, each one bringing him closer to his goal. Next, Evelyn and Oliver, it's your turn now. Sigfor called out to them. Oliver and Evelyn soon replaced Daniel and Nadia by taking their place. Show your elemental construct, Sigfor said as he folded his arms and looked at them keenly. His eyes narrowed slightly, curiosity piqued. He was curious what they had come up with. And how could he not be? Both of them were exceptional talents. However, their elements were not really compatible according to him. Light and water elements were not exactly the most destructive elements. At least not until the individual progressed to higher levels and had more mastery over their elements. At their level, being rank 1 exorcists, they did not have that level of control and mastery yet. So he did not have much hope for them to come up with something powerful and destructive like the previous 2 duos. In most cases, they could either come up with something related to healing or defense. It was understandable. Both water and light elements, if used properly and effectively, could create some of the most powerful healing techniques known to mankind or some extremely sturdy and creative barriers. He wanted to see what these 2 exceptional kids had come up with. His fingers tapped lightly against his arm, a subtle sign of his anticipation. I am ready. Evelyn motioned towards Oliver as she signaled for him to start. Oliver nodded and stretched out his hand in front of him, his palm facing the ground. Aspera started to channel through his fingers as puddles of water began to form in front of him, near his feet. He did not stop and kept his hand in the same position as more and more puddles of water started to appear on the ground in front of him. A moment later, the ground was filled with multiple puddles of water. Using moisture as a medium in the damp environment where they were, he was easily able to form so many puddles. The glistening puddles reflected the faint light, creating a shimmering effect. Was it a coincidence that they were in a damp environment to begin with, or was this the effect of his level 4 luck? There was always some level of moisture or water vapor present in the air at all times. It was not difficult for him to gather them and use Aspera to give them proper shape or expand them. Just when everyone was watching curiously, wondering what the water puddles were for, Oliver did something again. His palm, facing towards the puddles, clenched into a fist as the water beneath shook violently. The water puddles shook and started to float above the ground, rising in the air in front of him. Now the water puddles were at his eye level, in wobbly shapes and sizes. His eyes turned sharp as he kept his fist towards them. Swish! He suddenly opened the clenched fist and tremendous Aspera began to ooze out of it. The Aspera flowed as if a dam had broken loose, it was almost leaking. The air buzzed with energy, making the hair on their arms stand up. Every single person present in that area felt the tremendous amount of Aspera coming out of his body. Sigfor's expression hardened as his eyes shook slightly. He could feel it. The overflowing Aspera coming out of the body of the kid barely rank 1. The Aspera was dense and powerful, overpowering everything around. The most striking thing was the overwhelming amount of it radiating out of his body. Was this supposed to be the amount of Aspera a rank 1 exorcist should have? Sigfor questioned himself, but he knew the answer better than anyone else present. No. The Aspera was way stronger and more potent than any rank 1 could muster. The sheer quantity radiating out of Oliver's body was way higher than any rank 1 he had ever met or seen in his decades of experience. Twice? Thrice? He calculated the number of times his Aspera amount was when compared to an ordinary rank 1. No, it's close to 7 times. The moment he realized this, Sigfor's body stiffened up. He could not comprehend what was taking place in front of him. How could a kid with barely above average Aspera suddenly radiate 7 times the amount of Aspera? His mind raced, considering and discarding explanations. Was this the play of an artifact? It was possible if the kid was using an artifact that held the capability to store and release Aspera at will. But he could not see any such artifacts on him. His senses were sharp, he was confident he would have been able to locate an artifact easily unless he hid it really well and deep with another stealth artifact, which he clearly did not do. So it was his natural Aspera. The realization sent a chill down Sigfor's spine. Sigfor's fingers trembled as he felt the incomparably dense Aspera. He had to admit that Oliver was definitely an anomaly. He took a deep breath as he kept his mind focused on what they were going to show. His heart could not help but beat faster in excitement. The thrill of witnessing such potential was undeniable. He patiently watched them perform. He looked at the barrier he had erected using a special barrier talisman. There were some visible changes happening to the barrier too, not visible to the naked, inexperienced eye. At the top edge of the barrier, he could see it ripple continuously, clearly being affected by the tremendous Aspera gathering and interfering with it from inside. He shook his head. The barrier talisman that he had used was at best suited for rank 2 exorcists, yet seeing it ripple in such a way made his heart have complex emotions. He did not expect that someone among them would be able to interfere with his barrier. He pointed his finger at the ripples and in the next moment, they paused as the barrier seemed to have become strengthened compared to before since Oliver's Aspera was no longer interfering with it. Oliver's brows aligned as he keenly gazed at the wobbly water puddles in front of him slowly changing their shapes. The Aspera focused on the water started to act and reshape the puddles, turning them into spherical forms, flattening their surfaces. The water glistened, reflecting the light in mesmerizing patterns. The whole air was filled with multiple spherical water balls and mirror-like surfaces. The water was polished and still as the Aspera kept them stabilized in the air. Chapter 152 Gamma Rays. Cage of Radiation. Evelyn, who was watching this, could not help but take a deep breath. The sight was breathtaking, each sphere a testament to Oliver's control. The shimmering spheres hovered like celestial bodies, radiating a serene yet powerful aura. The moment Oliver released his Aspera, her breath hitched, and her heart almost leaped into her throat. She had never seen any of her peers with such a sheer quantity of aspera. No, she had never felt this pressured before. The gap between them was so wide, she was starting to realize it now. She could finally see it. The gap between her and him, it was vast, extremely vast. She looked down at her hand, it was trembling slightly from being exposed to the overwhelming aspera coming from him. If he had this much aspera since the beginning, then it made sense how he reached so high up during the mountain climb. She inhaled deeply to calm her nerves. Fortunately, she had already practiced with him multiple times beforehand, or else she might not have been able to keep her composure. The first time they tried it, she almost fell upon coming in contact with that sheer amount of aspera. Huff. Evelyn's eyes narrowed as she clasped her hands together. Closing her eyes, she focused as she channeled the light within her to move forward. In the next moment, a bright ray of light emerged from her body. It was blinding, making any onlooker close their eyes. However, she concentrated, and soon the blinding white light dimmed slowly, turning into a single focused ray, a dense, potent white ray of light focused in front of her. Go. She opened her eyes and, with a powerful burst of aspera, launched the ray of light towards Oliver, more specifically, towards the cage of water spheres and constructs. She did not relax and immediately conjured another blinding light, compressing it to a dense white ray, and threw it towards the water cage. She repeated this, one ray of light after another, each filled with energy and momentum. Her face was set in determined concentration, her movements precise and unwavering. Oliver used cosmic void gaze, as he saw the incoming lights. All of them were slowed down in his vision as they moved and entered the cage of water spheres. He stretched forward his hand and snapped his fingers. In an instant, the water bodies moved, accommodating the rays of light. Something happened, the light that should have passed through the water puddles was instead reflected backward. Not refracted? Reflection is the process where light bounces back from a surface rather than passing through it. This phenomenon occurs prominently when the water surface is calm and undisturbed. Under these conditions, the water can act like a mirror, reflecting light rays in a manner similar to a flat, smooth surface. However, that was not only it. Reflection is noticeable primarily when an appropriate angle is made when the light strikes the water, a low angle close to horizontal. Like when it happens during sunrise or sunset. Instead of refracting out of the water, the light is entirely reflected back into the water. But the more common phenomenon was refraction. Usually, it was expected for light to pass directly through the water into the air. And the angle requirement is pretty suitable for it to happen as well. Both reflection and refraction happen naturally in water, but refraction is way more common in general. Oliver adjusted the water constructs at such a position and angle that all the light rays reflected perfectly from one surface to another. Soon, the multiple light beams entered the sort of water cage that Oliver had perfectly and precisely angled and moved. What happened was the light beams, instead of dying down and disappearing, did not dull but instead kept getting reflected faster and faster in that cage of water constructs. Now, here's the theory that Oliver had proposed. The laws and physics of this world were not similar to those of his previous world so far as he had noticed already. While a lot of concepts were similar, due to the presence of an energy called aspera, many things were different or did not exist at all. It meant that the water in these constructs was not ordinary water but instead a form of shiny water that possessed unique energy-storing properties. The constructs of water were made using his tremendous aspera, and not to mention, he was continuously supplying aspera into them as well. These shiny water constructs could absorb and store large amounts of energy from the environment or an external source. The external source being him and the light beams. When light beams, photons, were directed into the cage of shiny water constructs, the interaction between the light and the water surfaces was designed to allow for perfect reflection. Perfect reflection means that the photons do not lose energy during reflection but can instead gain energy from the water constructs. He was using his aspera to make the shiny water constructs have the ability to transfer energy to the photons through a process akin to stimulated emission, where the photons gain additional energy from the water molecules. Each reflection within the cage increased the energy of the photons incrementally, turning them into high-energy photons. The shiny water spheres acted as microlenses, ensuring minimal energy loss and maximum energy transfer. While the flat water surfaces acted as perfect mirrors, reflecting the light beams without scattering, maintaining the coherence and directionality of the light. Screech! As the light beams reflected multiple times within the cage, they continuously gained energy, eventually reaching destructive levels. A sharp, high-pitched screeching sound was heard from time to time. The air seemed to vibrate with the intensity of the charged photons. These high-energy light beams were nothing simple, they were potent ionizing rays with extreme destructive potential. Ionizing radiation includes particles or electromagnetic waves with enough energy to ionize atoms or molecules by detaching electrons. Basically, they have enough energy to remove the tightly bound electrons from atoms, capable of splitting atoms into ions. It includes alpha particles, beta particles, neutrons, and high-energy photons, X-rays and gamma rays. It was an instant death if someone dared to step into a zone of high-dose ionized radiation. The cage, at the moment, was something similar. It was a cage containing high levels of these gamma rays. It was a cage of death. One step into it, and getting cancer was the least of worries. It was almost impossible to escape death without special protection. Gamma rays at extreme doses cause irreversible damage to the central nervous system. They directly lead to CNS failure, directly attacking the brain and nerves and killing the entity. In a typical nuclear accident or disaster, the estimated dose was around 10 to 30 sieverts, a unit to measure the level, which was as good as a guaranteed death. Typically, that should have been the case. However, Oliver and Evelyn were not at that level yet, nor did they intend to reach that level themselves for this demonstration. It was very natural for them to surpass this threshold and reach extremely destructive levels if they continued to grow their aspera in the future and become higher-ranking exorcists. But for now, this small practical demonstration had basically put up a foundation for a much deadlier weapon of mass destruction for the future. Right now, Oliver's entire focus was drawn to the water cage. His entire concentration was on maintaining the balance and adjusting the positions of the water constructs repeatedly and continuously to accommodate the light rays. The radiation level forming inside the water cage was not too high either. But it was still dangerous for a human body. His eyes shone as he once again adjusted the water constructs. He was continuously using cosmic void gaze on top of supplying aspera to the cage of water. It was draining his mental energy as well as aspera too much. He could already feel a sense of fatigue in his body. Of course, it was as simple as minor fatigue. He still had abyss energy inside him to support and sustain him. Even if his aspera was depleted down to zero, he would not die. Nonetheless, it was too draining and gave an uncomfortable feeling to him. He wanted it to be over as soon as possible. However, Oliver's gaze shifted as he said, "Evelyn, it's ready." To which, Evelyn moved quickly. She went up to the metallic training dummy in the corner. With a deep breath, she tightened her grip around the gnarled roots of the dummy, feeling the rough texture bite into her palms. She heaved, the muscles in her arms straining as she pulled with all her might. There was a moment of resistance. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat echoing in her ears. Snap. Then, with a loud snapping sound, the roots of the dummy gave way, a cascade of soil crumbling around its legs. She stumbled back, the now liberated metallic dummy clutched in her hands, its legs that were rooted into the earth beneath dangling and dripping with dirt. She looked at the dummy in her hands before gazing back at Oliver, who nodded at her. Chapter 153. Evelyn looked at the dummy in her hands before gazing back at Oliver, who nodded at her. Her fingers tightened around the dummy, feeling the weight of what they were about to demonstrate. She pulled her hand back and, with force, threw the dummy into the air, aiming towards the floating water cage in front of Oliver. The dummy flew in an arc straight towards the intended location, landing directly into the cage of water constructs. The surroundings fell silent, all eyes following the dummy's trajectory. The moment the dummy landed inside the cage, a reaction occurred, visible to everyone present. Swish! Swish! With a swift gesture, The beams of light that were continuously reflecting inside the cage collided with the surface of the metal, immediately distorting its plane surface, slowly breaking it, melting it down as the ionized radiations passed through it. The metal hissed and bubbled, its form warping under the intense energy. Every single person watching this could not help but hold their breath. It was too terrifying, beautifully so. The sight of a cage of water reflecting lights and melting literal metal, for some reason, the scene looked unreal. Light and water, the two most sensitive and docile elements known. The two elements known for being used mainly in defense and healing. Yet, what were they seeing right now? The same two humble elements were showcasing a destructive might that was far greater than any other elements. The water shimmered, refracting the light into lethal beams, while the light itself seemed to pulse with raw power. Suddenly, all of them felt that their combinations so far were as good as mud in front of this. Was this how it was supposed to be? Should they not have shown something related to healing or barrier arts? What was this even? How was light even able to pierce through metal? And damage it too? And what was the water even doing other than bouncing off lights? There were many questions that their childish brains could not understand. However, one person was able to grasp everything and see it thoroughly. Maddening. Absolutely maddening. Sigfor's mental state was in turmoil. Everything he had seen so far had lost any sense to him. He was staring at the demonstration by the two kids with eyes as wide as saucers. He could not take his eyes off this genius spectacle at all. His hands trembled slightly, barely containing his astonishment. His body was shaking, he was in self-disbelief at what he was witnessing. Two mere kids yet to cross the age of 10 had managed to pull off something even veteran exorcists would never be able to achieve. He really meant what he thought. To be able to figure out the properties of light and water at their age and then implement them practically was nothing but genius. He could not understand how they were able to deduce these things to such an extent. To be able to skim through things that researchers dedicated their lifetimes to in a matter of days, how smart were they both? Leaving the matter of theory aside for a second, to be able to implement it practically was what truly set them apart from others. He had met a few light exorcists in his life, but even after having a thorough understanding of their element, implementing such a thing was impossible for them. Not only would one need to be able to adjust the reflecting surfaces, but at the same time, they would be required to have a keen control over their aspera. A vast amount of aspera needed to be continuously supplied to the reflecting objects or surfaces, and at the same time, someone skilled enough to keep track of all light rays in that moment. Finding such a person who could do that was extremely difficult, one with such a level of coordination with the light element. How was Oliver able to keep up with these light beams? Sigfor narrowed his eyes, aspera radiating from his vision. He was still not able to keep track of all those multiple light rays no matter how much he focused. How could he? They were moving at the speed of light. He would be inhuman if he could keep track of them all. But then how was Oliver able to do that? He reasoned that if he was not wrong, then perhaps Oliver was also not able to see these light rays at all but instead was depending on his instincts to adjust the water constructs to accommodate light. Well, but then how was he so accurate? Not a single light beam escaped the water matrix. For that, Sigfor believed it was thanks to his high level of synergy with Evelyn. Unknowingly, both of them had managed to achieve a ridiculously high synergy with each other, making him able to connect with her and feel the flow of light. Otherwise, there was no logical reason that could explain how he was able to perfectly manipulate the water constructs. There was no way his eyes could keep up with the speed of light, right? Sigfor shook his head. There was definitely no way that was possible. He had heard of cases where two people would achieve a crazy synergy with one another, but the majority of them were from people who held strong emotions for the other person, basically couples in love. Well, it's not like that is definite. Both of them are geniuses among geniuses, so they might have been able to reach that state, he thought. Suddenly, a small voice drew his attention. He looked at Oliver, who was making a complex face. Just as he was wondering what was wrong, he heard him say, "Elder, I am not able to dismiss it." Sigfor's eyes trembled when he heard this. If Oliver stopped now, the water constructs would instantly turn back into liquid form, and the light inside, which was currently a high-energy beam, would explode out. The realization hit him like a cold splash of water. He did not worry about the other children thanks to the barrier he had faith in. But he was not so sure about the two kids inside. They might not be unharmed if that happened. "What are you doing? Did you guys not practice this before coming here?" Sigvar asked in a loud voice, a hint of agitation in his tone. "Well, the thing is, we did not do it to this degree. Whenever the light would get a little powerful, we would cancel it immediately," Evelyn said in a small voice. She was also looking at the cage with distress. She was far away. The one who would get hurt the most would be Oliver if it exploded. "You what?" Sigvar was so angry at this moment that he wanted to beat these two. The previous admiration for their talents and intellect was quickly consumed by the rage he felt for their careless behavior. His hands clenched at his sides, knuckles turning white. It was simply life-threatening for them. To act without knowing about the proper consequences and not care about anything, not only were they risking their lives but also the lives of their comrades. He could not help but grit his teeth in irritation. This was a really risky situation. Both of them might not realize this, but he did. "Step aside," he yelled at Evelyn, making her flinch. She looked at him with conflict. She did not want to leave Oliver behind. Should she try and control those light rays inside? It seemed to be quite difficult, but she would not allow someone close to her to get harmed because of her abilities. She trembled as she started to put her hand forward towards the light. When it seemed that she was about to try it despite the warnings, a loud voice interrupted her unstable thoughts. "Just do it." Sigvar could not take her indecisiveness any longer and roared furiously. She was just wasting time. The boy might have tremendous aspera, but it was not infinite. He would run out of it sooner or later, and from the looks of it, he seemed close to it. The moment he lost control, the explosion would happen. Before something unthinkable happened to either of them, he had to intervene. His voice was so loud thanks to aspera that all of them had a ringing sensation in their ears. "Yes," she said weakly before glancing in Oliver's direction one last time and making her way towards the edge of the barrier, quietly exiting it. Sigvar waved his hand and sealed off the barrier, allowing no one to enter anymore. He solemnly looked at the water cage with deep eyes. He could forcibly try to push it down, but he might hurt the kid in the process. He had no choice but to enter the barrier himself. A sense of urgency pushed him forward. Chapter 154. Sigvar wasted no time, and made a quick hand gesture, bringing his index and middle fingers together, positioning them together in the front of his chest as he applied aspera. A slit opening instantly appeared in the barrier, allowing him to enter. Without delay, he moved through the opening in the barrier before sealing it behind him. Now, he was very close to the boy and his water construct cage. The heat from the ionized rays brushed against his skin, a dangerous reminder of the impending threat. Now that he was this close to the cage of water, Sigvar truly felt the danger that was emanating from the box. Even someone of his caliber, who was way above them, could sense its potential destructiveness. He wouldn't dare imagine just what sort of havoc it could wreak once they had reached higher levels. Sigvar exhaled slowly, his eyes turning sharp with focus. He readied himself, channeling all his energy into the task at hand. The weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders, driving his resolve. "The moment I say back off, run towards the edge of the barrier without even looking back. Don't bother with anything, just leave," he instructed Oliver in a solemn, unwavering voice. He was absolutely serious, there was no room for any slips. His tone left no room for doubt, the gravity of the situation was clear. Oliver looked at the elder who had entered and nodded. His seemingly unworried demeanor infuriated the elder even more. "This kid has no idea how dangerous this stunt is." That was what the elder thought, but how could he know what Oliver was thinking? To be clear, Oliver really didn't fear the explosion. If it happened, he could easily suppress the outcome with abyss energy. Not only that, he was confident that he could very well protect himself and his body using the abyss energy too. However, it was just that he couldn't use it in front of others, lest they labeled him a heretic or some demonic being. Nonetheless, he had tested it beforehand and was confident that the elder should be able to suppress it. Seeing Oliver nod, Sigfur focused and closed his hand towards the water cage, gathering a massive amount of aspera, hundreds of times higher than Oliver's, in front of his fist. After a moment of tense silence, the elder shouted, "Leave!" Oliver didn't hesitate. Using the water elemental aspera, he threw the cage towards the elder and ran back. Seeing this, Sigfur's pupils contracted. He had only told the boy to leave without doing anything, yet this little bastard had actually thrown the entire cage towards him. Did he want to kill him? And that was even when he was there to save this brat. Too outrageous. Sigfur knew that he didn't have the time to get angry as the massive water cage hurled in his direction, the water constructs disintegrating from its former shape, turning into nothing more than simple liquids. The high-energy lights shot towards him all at once. Even with all this happening, Sigfur remained composed and pointed his claw at the light beam. The massive aspera quickly collided with the beam, engulfing it entirely. Boom! Oliver barely made it out of the barrier in the nick of time before a massive explosion erupted behind him. The shockwave from the blast propelled him forward, but he landed smoothly before trying to catch his breath. He had thrown the water cage towards Sigfur so that he could get more time to escape. It seems that the elder handled it well, he thought, observing the barrier with calm eyes that shone with a certain light. Although the whole barrier's interior was shrouded in clouds of smoke, Oliver could see things clearly thanks to cosmic void gaze, through which he spotted a distant figure standing amidst the smoke. He blinked and stopped using his special eyes. He was already mentally drained and any more effort might cause him to faint. He could already feel the last vestiges of his strength slipping away. All the children present held their breaths as they watched the barrier crack slowly before crumbling like broken glass and vanishing. The smoke had begun to clear out thanks to the wind, and Alfonso sped up the wind waves, quickly dissipating it. A collective sigh of relief was felt as the air cleared. They all saw Elder Sigfur's figure. His clothes were charred black, burnt from the sides, and his sleeves were ripped. He looked like a beggar. Miraculously, his body did not seem to have even an inch of a wound. It was toughened and scathed. His stern expression, however, spoke volumes. This? Daniel was at a loss for words. He had just witnessed something extremely incredible. He glanced towards Evelyn and Oliver with literal stars in his eyes, his admiration for the duo growing boundlessly. His body itched to recreate something similar to the previous stunt with them. Just the thought of thunder in that cage of death made him shiver in excitement, almost causing him to hallucinate. Moreover, the sight of the annoying old man, who would always act arrogantly towards them, turning into a beggar added another sense of satisfaction to Daniel's mind. He couldn't help but silently cheer the duo for making Sigfur taste dust. That was hella awesome, you guys. I can't wait to do it with you too. Daniel almost screamed, praising them and completely ignoring Sigfur, who was glaring at him with a dead gaze. The others tactically chose to remain silent, noticing Sigfur stare at the chattering Daniel. Damn, he's so obliviously bold. All the others shared the same thought as they watched him chattering nonstop, praising the duo for that combination from before and expressing his desire to do something similar with them. He's done for. Oliver silently sent his best wishes to Daniel, who was cluelessly laughing with Sigfur right behind him. Great, let me teach you how to do that. Sigfur's deep voice rang in Daniel's ears as a hand clasped his left shoulder, making him freeze. A chill ran down Daniel's spine and his smile soon faltered. For some reason, Daniel's instinct screamed at him about the disaster that was about to befall him. Alas, it was already too late. In the end, the silent hall reverberated with the painful shrieks of a boy. Chapter 155. After that incident, both Oliver and Evelyn were severely reprimanded by the old Sigfur, who made sure that they had it engraved into their brains that safety and tests were important before pulling any such stunts. The stern lecture echoed in their minds, leaving a lasting impression. And after getting some punishments, they moved on to the challenge winner being announced. So, the winner is A tense hush fell over the group, anticipation hanging in the air. So, all of you did some pretty great combinations, some even took it a step further and did something even more amazing too. He jabbed and looked at the trio, Oliver, Evelyn, and lastly Daniel, who for some reason had a swollen face. The silent accusation in his gaze was unmistakable. Now, I am going to declare the winners. It's based solely on my judgment about various aspects of your elemental combinations and other stuff such as your level of synergy. He said in a calm voice as he looked at the group. The winners are Amber and Alfonso. His words came off as an unexpected announcement as everyone looked at him with surprise visible in their eyes, clearly not expecting the outcome. Even the winners were confused and incredulous. Amber looked at Alfonso, then back at Sigfur. She clearly did not expect them to win in the end. But soon, the confusion was replaced by a smug expression as she flared up her chest high, clearly looking happy. Her triumphant grin spoke volumes of her satisfaction. She glanced around only to see everyone looking confused except for him. Even after all this, his expression was one of utter uninterested. He did not seem to be bothered by the outcome at all, a bored expression in his eyes as he watched the scene. His indifference was in clear contrast to the excitement around him. Alfonso could not bear the silence any longer and questioned, "This? Elder Sigfur, are you really sure about this?" His voice sounded hesitant. What he was doing was basically declaring that he did not think his team was worthy of winning the challenge and that Sigfur probably had made a mistake. While Alfonso had a streak in him to win and become strong, his pride as a gentleman did not allow him to win by cheating or misunderstandings. It is as you have heard. You both are the winners of this challenge and will receive the deserving rewards for it. There's no scope for mistake, I have thoroughly judged it. He paused, his eyes wandering off to a certain duo before he added further. And I clearly did not just judge it based on your destructive power at all. His words had a hint of sarcasm to them as he said that sentence. Alfonso had a realization dawn on him. He felt that he was now able to understand what the elder meant and why they were declared the winners instead. It was quite evident that Sigfur was really angry with Evelyn and Oliver this time. They both carelessly acted and neglected the safety of those around them. It was basically a death sentence had they been on a battlefield, which they surely would be in the future. Sigfur's way to declare them the winners was a method to teach both Oliver and Evelyn, the duo who were better than Amber and Alfonso in everything, be it their synergy to the overall destructive power of their elemental combination, that ensuring the safety of their comrades and themselves was more important than anything else. To have your comrades die due to your mistake was one of the worst things ever on a battlefield with demons. He was conveying this to them. Alfonso's heart felt conflicted at this thought. He knew that he and Amber did not deserve to be the victors at all, they were simply being used to set an example for them. But on the other hand, he felt that Sigfur could have also used Daniel and Nadia's team as well to demonstrate this and set an example but instead chose theirs. Didn't that mean that he still sincerely evaluated them? He wondered if he should really accept this honor and refuse to acknowledge this. His mind churned with conflicting thoughts, each one weighing heavily on him. Just as he was in conflict, Amber's voice rang out close to him. Don't be an overthinker. Elder Sigfur has insight that we won't be able to understand. If he has said that we are the winners, then there must be something behind that as well. I know what you are thinking, but you need to trust the elder. He's basically our mentor, she said in a flat tone, clearly not impressed that Alfonso was being such a wimp about such a small matter. Alfonso became silent as he heard her words. He considered her advice, and it did make sense. He was probably being too concerned over such a trivial matter. Her pragmatism cut through his doubts, grounding him. At least they would be getting a reward now for being victorious in the challenge. You are right, haha. I am thinking too much, he apologized and looked back at the elder. You two, come and collect it afterwards in the evening. All of you are dismissed now. Sigfur waved his hand and left the children after telling them to dismiss. Huh. That old bastard. I bet you both will get double training as a reward from him, Daniel scoffed the moment Sigfur left, his voice seeming muffled due to the beatings that made his cheeks swollen. His swollen face twisted into a grimace as he spoke. He hated the old man even more so now. Nadia was calm. She was still looking at Oliver's back discreetly. Her eyes held no trace of emotion as she recalled Sigfor's words. Pathetic. She thought when she heard him preach about danger and safety like a saint. She knew all too well how many of his comrades he must have killed or sacrificed to have survived so far from the battlefields. He had no right to tell them about it. She felt it was very pathetic and cowardly of that old man to even utter a word about safety standards. Her disdain for him grew, solidifying her resolve to use that weapon that Oliver had displayed in some way or another. She could not care less about a withering old man. Chapter 156. In her eyes, the spectacle that Oliver had just shown her was nothing more than a powerful weapon they could use in the future to slaughter demons. A dangerous tool in the ongoing war against their enemies. If only they somehow managed to overcome the lack of Aspera with a huge amount of Aspera and some minor changes, they could conduct the same combination on a massive scale, a way bigger experiment. Just the level of destruction they could bring to their enemy's homeland was unthinkable. It was definitely a weapon worth polishing. The potential was immense, and the thought of it brought a cold aura around her. She had to try something of a similar level with her ice element as well. Her eyes turned deadly cold at that moment. In the end, everyone left with complicated emotions. Undoubtedly, they all knew who the actual winners and deserving ones were, but no one said it out loud. The unspoken truth hung heavy in the air, a silent acknowledgement of their real abilities. Later, Amber and Alfonso went to collect their rewards, which were some rune booklets and a tool for exorcism. Their expressions were a mix of pride and uncertainty, still processing the day's events. Underscore 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 underscore. Outside, some distance away from the base of the mountain, a group of cloaked individuals was standing. All of them were dressed in dark robes, their faces hidden in shrouds as they faced the base of the mountain. I did not expect the exorcist from the Mystic Purge clan to leave the clan so soon. One of the cloaked individuals said in a heavy tone, his body bulging with muscles, making him appear much larger than the others. His presence was imposing, a silent threat to anyone nearby. This definitely means that the exorcist is not aware of the thing they are carrying with them. They are most likely unaware of the egg of the disaster beast. Another figure said. From her feminine tone and high-pitched voice, it was evident she was a woman. Her voice carried a note of excitement, barely concealed under her cloak. Shoo, don't utter that word. It is impossible to know when someone might hear our talk, a man of short stature said in a wary tone. Come on, you are worrying too much. We are in the middle of nowhere. No one's going to hear us. Toughen up, the woman said in a sly voice. The man could not refute her words since what she said was true. The mountain in the distance was the only thing here. It was weird that such a huge mountain was located in the middle of nowhere. The desolate landscape added to their sense of security. It might have been an old ruin. The signals are coming strongly from the base of the mountain, the target is there. Suddenly, a fourth person spoke. His dark black robe was designed with a certain pattern, different from his companions'. He was exuding a powerful and sinister aura, much denser than the others. He was clearly their superior. Not to mention, all of them quieted down and listened to his words seriously. We are close. The exorcist is oblivious to the precious treasure. However, I can sense a strong presence at the base of the mountain. It's dangerous. He spoke in a static voice, making the others frown. After all, no matter how much they tried, they were not able to sense any strong presences from the mountain base. But since their leader could feel it, this could only mean that the individual present there was stronger than them. If so, they could not act and attack carelessly. A misstep could cost them everything. They needed to know the situation a bit more. What are your orders, leader? The woman asked in a polite tone. The leader in question remained silent for a moment, thinking through this and deciding on a solution. Scatter around and map out the terrain. Find the break points. The mountain is covered in a special barrier. It's not an easy one. Locate the weak spot. We will infiltrate the mountain first. Hide your presences using the tools given to you. Don't dare to let yourself be revealed even slightly if you don't want to die, he finally said. His voice carried a finality that brooked no argument. It was simple: if they got exposed, the powerful exorcist inside would directly kill them. The leader would not step in to save them if that happened. They would be on their own. This showed just how strong the person inside was for their leader to be cautious of them as well. The leader they were with was a special individual selected by the supreme master of the cult just for this task. They all had heard about his extraordinary strength and killing techniques. He was ruthless and had slaughtered countless exorcists so far. Usually, with him present, they would have directly barged inside, killed the exorcists present inside, and retrieved the egg. But for a presence inside to make their leader wary of them meant it was not going to be a simple mission. However, all of them were specially selected for this mission to retrieve the egg of the disaster beast. They all had abilities to back themselves. It was not for nothing that they were here in the first place. The exorcist who had the egg belonged to the Mystic Purge clan. It would be stupid for them to assume he would be weak. This was why they were here, to hunt him down and get the treasure back. Of course, that would mean making enemies with one of the 5 major clans. However, since the orders were from their masters, they would not hesitate in doing what was told. Heretics like them often avoided exorcists from the major clans not only because they were quite strong and annoying to deal with but also because if one of their exorcists were targeted, the whole clan would hunt them down. Escaping the Mystic Purge clan's reach in human territory was close to impossible. This was how influential a major clan was. "Leader, can I slaughter the exorcists inside if I am careful enough?" The burly man asked for permission in his heavy masculine tone. His eyes gleamed with bloodlust. The leader's expression was indifferent. He had pale skin and black irises. He gazed at the burly man for a moment before shifting his focus back to the mountain. Chapter 157. The leader's expression was indifferent. He had pale skin and black irises. He gazed at the burly man for a moment before shifting his focus back to the mountain. "Do whatever you like." The burly man with brown skin smiled wickedly at that, his hands itching for blood and flesh. He was going to kill everyone inside and drink their blood. "Leader, what about you?" the man with short stature questioned with respect. "I will do nothing." The group looked at him with blank expressions. "This? Leader, are you sure?" The woman hesitated and wondered. "I will be making preparations for a killer array in advance. Once we manage to pass through the barrier, I will engage with the expert present inside while you retrieve the egg." He spoke in a dark tone, making others tremble. His words carried an unspoken threat, a promise of what was to come. Killer array. It was one of the demon's inventions, designed to deal with the pesky, troublesome exorcists. The array consisted of extremely destructive and violent runes. Just one array was enough to eliminate a plethora of exorcists with a single activation. Basically, it was a death trap for any exorcist who would be caught inside. For their leader to activate such an expensive and complex array, they all knew that the situation was dire. The expert inside must have been a high-ranking exorcist since he was forced to use such an array. Ah! All of them had their eyes sparkling with lights of revelation. "That's great, leader." As expected of our leader. They praised him like a group of bootlickers around a young master. The leader nodded, his eyes glistening with a sinister glow in them as he ordered them to disperse and create an opening in the barrier. Considering the barrier's sturdiness, it might take them weeks to do so, but it was worth it. They would not get a chance better than this one. If the exorcist returned to the Mystic Purge clan, then it would be impossible to reach them. This was their best opportunity, and they would never let this pass by. Underscore 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 underscore. It was soon the next day. Sigfur summoned the group of children. This time, all of them were seated on their desks while he was in front of them. "Now, you have 2 choices. he said as he summoned a thick old book and a spear. He then looked at them and continued, either we start with weapon training or runic studies. Discuss it and we will proceed with what you decide. As soon as Sigfur finished, Daniel stood up from his desk and looked at others. You guys have to choose weapon training. His tone had excitement as if he was ready to defend his point to the very end. Alfonso looked at Evelyn, who was next to him, and asked, what do you think? Well, I am fine with either of the two. Both are going to be useful to us. I will follow what you guys decide, she replied with a smile. Isn't runic knowledge more important? Weapon training is going to be exhausting, honestly, Amber said as she stretched her back. That's true as well. Alfonso muttered with a nod. You guys can't be serious, right? Amber, Alfonso, just think about how much fun it would be to train together. We can spar with that old Elder Sigfur as much as we want. Don't you all want to know about his powers, and we can also duel with each other? You guys, please. Daniel pleaded as he looked at the two. You brat, you are still 100 years early to dare to think about fighting me, Sigfur frowned. Amber leaned forward on the desk, supporting her chin with her hand. She turned to look at Oliver and asked. Oliver, what about you? What do you want to do? Me? I am fine with either. But since Daniel is requesting all of us, we should consider him too, he thought aloud. Oliver, my dude. I love you. Stop being so cringe, Daniel, Amber scolded, making a disgusted face at his words. Well. Alfonso smiled wryly before glancing at Nadia, who had an icy aura surrounding her. He didn't dare approach her, and given her stance, she probably did not care either way. He coughed twice and said, since it's like this, then Amber, I think we should take the weapon training first. We can always learn about runes later. Sure, if everyone is fine with it. I just mentioned it since I like runes more, Amber shrugged. Haha. Alfonso laughed and nodded at Daniel. Elder Sigfur. We want you to teach us weapon training first, he shouted, making sure that the elder had heard him clearly. Seeing the brat yell, Sigfur frowned. It seemed like this brat hadn't learned his lesson even after getting beaten up. All right then, he said, and the book vanished from his hand and returned back to his storage artifact. He then tapped the spear against the floor, producing a thud. We will start with weapon training first. We will start with weapon training first. Just as Sigfur announced, Daniel jumped in joy and made noises only to be silenced by the elder's anger. First, we shall see what weapons you kids feel the most comfortable with. If you already have a preference with the weapons you are comfortable with, then find it, otherwise, I will help you get one, he said as he waved his hand, and the next moment numerous training weapons appeared on the table before him. I will use a sword. Daniel leapt over and picked up a sleek sword. He then waved it in the air with swift and precise strikes. Not bad. Sigfur thought as he observed the kid's short movement and instantly recognized that Daniel was very familiar with his weapon, the sword. As expected from the Sacred Swords clan, they must have nurtured him with weapon techniques and training extensively. Enhance your reading experience by removing ads for as low as $1. Chapter 158. Sigfur knew how terrifying the Sacred Swords clan's prowess was when it came to the handling of weapons, especially swords. They were second to none in swordsmanship. They were the best among all when it came to using and handling swords. It did not come as a surprise that their heir turned out to be a genius in this regard. I will have the spear, Alfonso said as he picked up a spear from the assortment of weapons. He was used to spears, and with his wind element, it was quite a suitable choice for him. Elder, I am not sure about weapons. Amber said as she looked at the array of weapons with interest, wondering just which weapon would best suit her. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity as she imagined herself wielding each one. Which one of them attracts your eye the most? Well, if I had to say, then the hammer, greatsword, and gauntlets seem rather appealing, she muttered with fascination. She wanted to use her own tools but knew that it wasn't allowed. She was much more comfortable using artifacts and her diverse exorcism tools. Then give each of them a try. We will go with the one that suits you the best, Sigfur said calmly. Does this mean that I can choose multiple weapons? She asked curiously. Of course, there's no rule saying you can only select a single weapon for training, he replied. Albeit, mastering a single weapon could be more fruitful for the future, but if you feel you can handle it, then be my guest and have a go with them, he added. I understand, Elder. Amber nodded and picked up the weapons. The weight of each one felt right in her hands, and she wondered which would become her favorite. Wait, Elder, then can I also have the bow as well? Alfonso asked in a low voice, a little flustered. His eyes had been drawn to the bow alongside the spear as well. Since they could give it a try, he wanted to try using a bow once too. He might be more compatible with it in the long run after all. Sure. Take it. Sigfur nodded. I think I will have this. Evelyn came forward and picked up a weapon. It was a sword, a katana, to be specific. She twisted her wrist and moved the katana in the air. It felt very familiar to her. Her hand clutched the weapon tight as her eyes were drawn to the long blade. It could properly conduct her light element and channel her spirit to it as well. Oliver followed behind her and picked up a katana as well. It was an exotic weapon, different from the traditional ones. Evelyn saw this and made a surprised face. She asked, "You are also interested in a katana?" She was curious. Did Oliver also feel the same way as her about the weapon? Something like that, he smiled and said. He could not tell her that since she was about to start practicing with the katana, he would automatically gain knowledge and experience about it as well sooner or later. She laughed and patted his shoulder. Then it looks like we will spar a lot in the future. Looks like that. He tilted his head and laughed a little. Amber, who was observing from the side, narrowed her eyes. She did not know when, but her grip on the hammer tightened a bit for some reason. Last was Nadia. She looked at the array of weapons with disinterest. Her mother had already selected the perfect weapon for her back at the clan. After this was over, she was going to perform a ritual of selection with the weapon her mother had chosen once she returned to the clan. She did not need these weapons. But in the end, she still had to choose, so she picked up a longsword, a scythe, and some throwing weapons. It seems everyone has made their choice. Sigfur looked around and nodded. The weapons disappeared from the table back into his storage space. Now then, I will teach you how to improve your form. While my primary weapon might be different than yours, with my experience alone, I can help you all. Sigfur said as he waved the spear in his hand. The air around the spear trembled before an illusionary dragonfly appeared at the tip of the spear. The dragonfly flew over their heads before scattering into countless light particles and disappearing. They looked at it in awe. Now then, get your weapons ready. All of you come at me. Sigfur announced in a loud tone, suddenly making all the desks and chairs disappear. All that was left in the dilapidated hall was him and the kids. Fine by me. Daniel did not hesitate and swung his sword at Sigfur, his eyes fierce as if he wanted to actually slash him. Humph. Sigfur easily parried his strike, pushing him back like nothing. Swing. Daniel did not back down and the next moment threw himself towards Sigfur again, only to be thrown backwards as their weapons collided. Clang. Clang. Daniel kept charging at Sigfur, his movements irregular and hurried. Oliver noticed this. While his moves looked irregular and reckless, he could feel a calculated and proper form behind them. He knows what he is doing. Oliver thought as he observed the spar carefully. Daniel was constantly switching his form, wanting to take Sigfur by surprise but losing to him miserably after every turn. He felt that Daniel should focus more on one form first if he wanted to improve. Right now, it looked more like he wanted to defeat the Elder at any cost and not actually learn and improve his form. Oliver was thinking when the Elder's voice rang again. What are you all waiting for? Did I not say to come at me at once? Come forward, he said. But sir, a spar should take place between the two parties only. It would be rude of us to cross the line and group together against you. It will be equal to cheating. Alfonso said in a conflicted tone. Slap. The sound echoed in the hall, silencing everyone. Chapter 159. Slap. Amber slapped his back, her face carrying a heavy frown. Ouch. What was that for, Amber? He asked as he winced in pain. Are you kidding me? Do you expect demons to follow your so-called morals and etiquette during a battle of life and death? She snarled. Do you think they will say, oh, it's Mr. Alfonso, the human noble? We can't fight him in groups. Let's fight him one by one. Do you even have a brain? Amber voiced out, clearly pissed off at such a pathetic excuse on his end. I never thought like that. Alfonso flushed red while he denied her accusations. That is different. Here we are conducting a proper spar with the elder. He tried to reason, but Amber only made a face that was too bored to listen to him. Do whatever you want. If you want to die so badly, then go and jump off the mountain cliff. I don't care. She said as she picked up gauntlets, wearing them. Her fingers tightened around the leather straps, knuckles turning white. She too went to fight the elder, who easily parried her sluggish punches with ease. Evelyn also came forward. She brandished her katana as she concentrated on the elder's open spots, striking with her sword. Swish. Clang. However, Sigfur didn't even move and blocked her with his spear. Suddenly, Oliver jumped onto him from behind while he was blocking Evelyn's sword. He aimed for Sigfur's head. Sigfur sensed him and bent his head backwards, making Oliver's sword pass by him by just a hair's distance. Damn brat. He is really coming to get the kill. Sigfur smirked. He liked that sort of decisiveness and ruthlessness. A sharp dagger came flying towards the back of his neck. Sigfur moved his free hand behind his back and caught the dagger with 2 fingers. Not bad, he thought as he threw the dagger away and looked at Nadia standing some distance away, her eyes without expression. As expected from the heirs of the Mystic Purge clan, always so ruthless and indifferent. Not bad, he thought as he threw the dagger away and looked at Nadia standing some distance away, her eyes without expression. As expected from the heirs of the Mystic Purge clan, always so ruthless and indifferent. He liked that trait of this clan. They never hesitated to kill their enemies. While his principles did not align well with the Mystic Purge clan's principles, he still held some level of admiration for the latter. It was obvious that he hated how they would even sacrifice their allies and comrades to achieve victory, but their decisiveness in situations and tactics were top-notch. Daniel attacked him again. This time, Sigfur kicked his stomach, throwing him back. Pfft. Daniel coughed up some spit as the air in his lungs almost vanished with that kick. He took continuous deep breaths to steady himself. He felt disappointed at having such a gap in their abilities and power, but he knew it made sense. Otherwise, how would Sigfur have been qualified to tutor them in the first place? He heard Sigfur say, focus on one technique at a time. Don't act smart and use all of them at once. You cannot defeat me as you are right now. So push that thought out of your mind and focus on improving yourself. Daniel gritted his teeth. He had to accept that he really could not touch the old man. He had to focus on improving his techniques first. The elder was right when he said that. Remember, this is not just about attacking. Learn to read your opponent, understand their movements, and adapt. Now, come. Ha. He weakly got up and flexed his muscles as energy filled his core. He was now using Aspera to try and combat the old man. However, in the end, it did not matter at all. The old elder, who looked weak from the front, was not weak at all. He easily countered it with his spear and threw him back again. It was very frustrating to be wrapped up so easily. The others did not stop either for Daniel and launched attacks of their own while Sigfur blocked them and parried back. Sweat poured down their faces, mixing with the dirt and blood from minor cuts. Each failed attempt only fueled their determination. Only Alfonso was the odd one out, watching from the side uncomfortably. Amber's words kept ringing in his ears continuously. Maybe he wanted to deny that she was right. Biting his lip, he watched them train under Sigfur's guidance, despite the unfair advantage they were having in a spar with the old elder. He clutched the spear in his hand tightly, his knuckles turning pale. He watched every second pass by with conflicted emotions. One part of his mind said to jump in and join his friends, while his heart remained stubborn and refused to follow such a crude way of training. It was then that Sigfor's voice, as calm as water, sounded as he addressed him. "There's nothing to think about. If you believe that I will be defeated by the likes of you brats, then I would not be a veteran from the borders for nothing. If you actually think that, then you are quite foolish. It's not etiquette but rudeness to underestimate your opponent during a battle." "Did I ask for your opinion, boy?" he asked, wondering when Alfonso had heard him ask for his opinion. Clang! Sigfor blocked Evelyn's katana as he finished saying what he wanted to. If even after all this, Alfonso was not able to realize that the opportunity was right in front of him, then he would not help him. He was a clan heir. Despite his age, there were things that he should be able to deduce on his own. There was no need for him to intervene. This was the simple logical thought process that he needed to build. The weight of the spear grew heavier in Alfonso's hand. He stared at his reflection in the polished blade, searching for the courage he needed. In the end, Alfonso still did not move and listen to his heart. He quietly left the area and went to a corner to train on his own. Sigfor could not help but feel disappointed in him. Nonetheless, he was not there to babysit him. If this was what he had decided, then so be it. Chapter 160. Sigfor continued to polish the kids over the next few days, making them realize improvements through constant spars. Sweat dripped from their brows as they lunged and parried, each clash of metal echoing through the training yard. They were geniuses, quickly learning from their mistakes and correcting them in the next attack. Each sparring session became a dance of precision and skill, their movements growing more fluid with every bout. It was a fun experience nonetheless. Laughter and shouts of encouragement filled the air, the camaraderie between the kids growing stronger with each passing day. They were still not able to hit him though. Sigfor moved like a shadow, effortlessly dodging their strikes, his eyes gleaming with a certain pride. The most notorious ones in his eyes were Oliver and Daniel when it came to wielding weapons. Their strikes were fierce, their eyes focused, every swing of their blades driven by a calm and calculated force. Both of them used weapons as if they were using their limbs, their movements always precise and calculated, making him feel a hidden intent. Sigfor could sense their resolve, the fire in their hearts pushing them to surpass their limits. They might be the closest ones to hitting him once. So he was extra careful with the two of them. He watched them with a keen eye, noting their progress and silently cheering their growth. After 2 weeks of continuous day and night training, he gathered them again in the hall. "We have trained quite a lot, and you all have shown considerable improvements too. It's not easy to improve so much in such a short span of time. You all are quite good." His voice was steady, but the pride in his eyes was unmistakable. After all, they were his unofficial students in a way, and watching them grow strong made him feel satisfied. He sighed as he said this. No matter how talented or powerful seniors like him were, the juniors would surpass them one day. "Now we should move forward and learn how to fight using spirits," Sigfor said, something unexpected. "Spirits? Does that mean?" Evelyn muttered. She was heard by Sigfor clearly. "That's right. We will be summoning spirits for you to fight with or inside your weapons." His words dropped like a bomb on the group's head. Gasps and murmurs filled the room as the kids exchanged excited glances. "Spirits? Really? This is freaking awesome." Daniel was overjoyed as he blurted out. He was craving some adrenaline, and this was the perfect opportunity. He could not wait to try summoning a spirit. His fists pumped in the air, his eyes shining with excitement. Elder, isn't it quite difficult to summon a spirit?" "As far as I have read in books, it is said that you are required to have strong aspera and concentration to even connect to the spirit realm. According to the texts, it's mentioned that spirits don't even bother responding to weak individuals," Alfonso said, adjusting his sleeves slightly. His voice was calm, but a hint of worry was present in his eyes. "What? Is that true?" I was so ready for it. Daniel frowned and looked at him, wondering if it was true. While he didn't doubt himself, he was merely a rank 1 exorcist, which was just the beginning of the path of an exorcist. Sigfur finally broke the silence. He looked around at their anxious faces, a reassuring smile forming on his lips. It's indeed true. However, that is only limited to permanent spirit summoning when forming contracts. Instead, we will perform a partial summoning to temporarily borrow the strength of a spirit. This is relatively easy, and even kids like you should be able to do it to some extent. He paused for a moment as he looked at them. All of them were geniuses. Normally, a kid would not be able to do it. However, they were not normal kids either. He had confidence that they could do it. Of course, it will not be as effective and potent as a permanent contract with a spirit. It will be far paler in comparison to that. But for dire situations, even borrowing the strength of a spirit temporarily could change the tides, he added. Spirits are not physical beings. They exist in spiritual form only. Their own strength is not noteworthy. However, we as exorcists bear the potential to bring out the most of their powers, and thus we form contracts with them. He tapped his desk as he continued, spirits have always loathed demons and ghosts. This is also one of the reasons that ancient spirits were willing to come out of their realms and help humans push them back, even if it meant forming a contract. Spirits are beings closest to elements. There are spirits belonging to each element in existence. The bearer of the element will find themselves more drawn towards the spirits affiliated with their element than others. However, don't get excited just yet. Spirits are beings who are able to see through things most humans can't, which is your inner self, he said, stroking his long beard. Inner self? What's that? Amber questioned. Inner self is the true essence of who you are, he explained. It's your thoughts, feelings, and the core of your being that make you unique. While we often hide our true selves from others, spirits can see this inner self clearly. They understand your true nature, your strengths, weaknesses, and even your hidden desires. Damn. That's a breach of my privacy. Daniel exclaimed in shock. The room erupted in laughter, the tension easing slightly. Anyways, as I was saying, spirits are very picky beings, so match your pace to them while interacting if you happen to find an intelligent spirit, which is very rare, he said simply. Elder, I can't wait anymore. Can we start already? Daniel groaned and asked. Be patient, brat. We are going to start. Sigfur's stern look made Daniel shrink back, muttering under his breath. Sigfur frowned and berated him sternly, making the latter shrink in his seat. Follow me, he said, leading the group of children behind him to the entrance of the old mountain hall, the very place where they were when they had just arrived. Sigfur bent down and stretched out his finger towards the ground, specifically towards a runic array drawn with blank ink on the floor. Chapter 161. Oliver's eyes narrowed at that, memories of their arrival flooding back. Isn't that the same array that the elder from the clans had drawn before leaving us here? He muttered. You are right, Sigfur commented as he continued tracing his finger down the boundaries of the array. One could clearly see that the moment or portion where Sigfur's finger passed by was lighting up in a strange dim color. The glow pulsed softly, casting an eerie yet comforting light on the surroundings. A mellow orange color soon covered the whole array. Elder, what is this? Oliver could not help but be curious. He was very interested when the elder first drew these arrays. However, at that time, he was forced to forget about it due to the nonsensical stunts that his clan elder had pulled on him. And afterward, with all that mountain climbing and training elements, he had completely forgotten about these arrays. But now that Sigfur was using them, he could not help but be curious. It is a spirit summoning array, he answered. The array is used for those who cannot connect to the spirit realm on their own. Then that means... Oliver paused. That's right, it's for you kids to be able to summon spirits temporarily and borrow their powers for some time. You all can't connect to the spirit realm as you are now. Ah, did the elders already know about it? He further asked. That's obvious, how could they not know? Sigvar said in a straight tone. It now made sense for them to draw these arrays beforehand. He turned towards Amber and asked, "Did you also know about these arrays?" She shook her head. "I did not know either, I only recognized the ghost-repelling array over there." Her finger pointed to a barely visible set of symbols etched into the ground, glowing faintly in the corner. She pointed to an array in the corner and said, "But now it's making sense. I was initially confused why they were preparing a ghost-repelling array in this place when a veteran exorcist like Elder Sigvar was here. But since there's a spirit array nearby, it could attract ghosts from far away as well, disturbing the summoning." Oliver agreed with her hypothesis, it all fit into place now. He nodded, piecing together the logic behind their preparations. The ghost-repelling array completely blocked off any demonic ghosts with ill intent. And the spirit summoning array worked in a way that connected the individual to the realm of spirits. It was a metaphysical place, after all. The air around them seemed to whiz with energy, anticipation building among the group. Once you are connected to the realm of spirits, you will try to attract the spirits of your elements by releasing your aspera outwards. It should work fine. Remember not to get lost and try attracting other elemental spirits, you can't handle two elements right now. Sigvar issued the instructions in a serious voice. "Especially you, noisy brat," he looked towards Daniel and said, making him jerk his head. Daniel's cheeks flushed as the group chuckled softly. What? I am not noisy," he quickly denied the false allegations with a flushed face. "Also, why are you only saying this to me?" he pointed at others and asked. Hearing his words, Sigvar sighed, "Listen, brat, if you continue to be like this, then I will exclude you from summoning spirits." At that, Daniel had no choice but to shut up. He mumbled under his breath, but the glint of excitement in his eyes didn't fade. Sigvar then looked at the others. Amber suppressed a laugh. He said, "This applies to all of you. Don't be overconfident and try to attract more than what you can handle. Understand?" "Yes, Elder," they nodded and replied in unison. Their voices rang out strong and clear, determination evident on their faces. "Better. Now come one by one, I will help you," he said. Daniel, being the guy he was, strode first. He looked fearless and excited. His steps were almost a skip as he moved forward, his eagerness quite evident. "I am here." "You are the first?" Sigvar gave him a look. What's with that look, Elder?" Daniel frowned and asked. "Hurry up and get inside." Sigvar waved his hand, and Daniel's body was pulled into the array on its own. The force was gentle yet insistent, like an invisible hand guiding him into place. "Now close your eyes and focus. Don't think about other things." Once he was properly positioned, Sigvar told him to close his eyes as he channeled aspera into the array, thus activating it. A low hum filled the air, the energy of the array responding to Sigvar's command. Swish! A smooth sound was heard as Daniel was soon enveloped in a light as he concentrated. The light shimmered around him, creating a cocoon of energy. Time ticked by as everyone waited for Daniel, watching him from time to time. No one talked much for fear of distracting him and ruining his summoning, although that was unnecessary since, according to the elder, he was already in the spirit realm trying to attract a spirit. Whoosh! Suddenly, the array reacted as the orange light grew brighter and brighter with each passing second. Huh! Daniel exhaled as he slowly opened his eyes. His eyes held a hint of energy. A faint smile tugged at his lips, the light in his eyes reflecting the power he now held. In the next instant, a strong crackling sound was heard just beside him as a streak of lightning buzzed. It was a blue streak that was barely visible due to its speed. It was continuously circling his body, making it look as if Daniel was crackling with thunder. The energy danced around him, vibrant and alive, filling the air with a sharp, electric scent. He got up, looking at the others, and grinned broadly. "I managed to summon a spirit." Chapter 162. He took out his sword, and the roaming thunder streak merged with the blade. The sword seemed to vibrate with strong power, glowing with a fierce, electric blue. He swung the sword, and a wave of lightning thunder traveled from it, directly blasting apart the wooden chair he aimed for. "This is power. Ha ha ha." He laughed as he swung his sword a few more times, properly adapting to the power of the spirit. Each swing felt more natural, the sword becoming an extension of his own arm. Each swing sent arcs of lightning through the air, his laughter mingling with the crackle of electricity. "All right, brat, get back. Next one, come forward." Sigfur nodded and called for the next person to step up. He was internally satisfied that Daniel managed to summon a thunder spirit, matching his attribute. While it was an unranked spirit, it was still impressive for his age. In this world, except for children born with a contracted spirit, very few could summon one before the age of 10. And while Daniel was swinging his sword, Sigfur managed to glimpse something more from his body. A faint glow pulsed around Daniel, indicating a deeper connection to the thunder element than he had initially thought. If his guess was correct, Daniel was most probably born with a special constitution. It was likely related to the thunder element itself, given how effectively he could conduct the spirit. Amber went next. The same thing happened, and in the end, she managed to summon an earth spirit. A small, glowing figure of rock and soil danced around her fingers, responding to her every command. Tiny pebbles floated around her hand, creating a delicate and intricate orbit. Next was Alfonso, who, after some difficulty, managed to summon a wind spirit. He took almost 5 whole hours to summon the spirit. The air around him swirled gently, lifting his hair as a faint whisper of wind echoed in the hall. Each breath he took seemed lighter, as if he was in sync with the very air itself. After he was done, Nadia went forward, and within minutes, a chilling ice spirit was at the tips of her fingers. It was still and controlled, fully obedient to her. A tiny figure of frosty light clung to her hand, the air around her cooling noticeably. A thin layer of frost spread from her fingertips, glistening like morning dew. Sigfur praised her. She was definitely extremely talented to be able to summon a spirit so quickly. Next. It was the protagonist's turn. It was Evelyn that went up next. The moment she stepped in, the array began to work on its own without any input from Sigfur, making him surprised. She can already connect to the spirit realm at her age. Impossible. His eyes went wide when he saw her effectively activate the array without doing anything. His body shook slightly, he had never seen such a genius before. This girl is a true monster, he deduced instantly, his heart racing wildly as he imagined the boundless potential of the girl. The Celestial Paradox clan has produced a true monster this generation. Evelyn was already plenty talented. With her light element, Sigfur knew that there would be few who could stand against her in the future. Not even a minute had passed before a blinding white light covered the entire array. It was so bright that people felt it was akin to staring at the sun. The light radiated warmth, filling the room with a serene, comforting glow. As the light slowly started to dull, they all saw Evelyn standing, and in front of her was a floating ball of light. This is an intelligent spirit. Sigfur muttered in absolute shock as he immediately went forward, standing next to her, observing the ball of light. "Elder, can you explain what you meant?" Oliver asked from behind, making him come out of his trance. He coughed twice as he cleared his throat. "While this should not be of use to you, now that the situation demands it, I will tell you, spirits are classified into ranks depending on their rarity, power, and abilities." "What rank?" Amber wondered. Spirits are classified by the Exorcists Union from D rank to S rank. The higher the rank a spirit is classified into, the stronger it is. S rank being the strongest and D rank being the weakest. "Whoa. What rank is my spirit, Elder?" Daniel asked. "Your spirit has no rank. It's not a true spirit in the first place but just a fragment of a true spirit without any intellect." "What?" Disappointment flickered across Daniel's face, but he quickly masked it with a determined expression. "But this is not something to be disappointed about. Just managing to summon a partial spirit alone is very hard for children like you. Only true geniuses with great affinity to their elements ever manage to summon spirits at such an age." Hearing Sigfor's words lifted his spirits a little. Oliver asked, "Then what about her spirit?" He pointed at the floating light ball. "It's a spirit close to the peak of D rank." Sigfor's words sent the kids into an uproar as they quickly surrounded Evelyn, or more likely the light spirit floating aloof. The light spirit seemed to shimmer with pride, basking in their admiration. Feeling the gazes of so many children, Oliver felt the spirit puff up slightly, turning into a slightly bigger ball. Amazing! His eyes were fixed on the spirit. The next moment, his eyes shone with a certain purple glint as he used cosmic void gaze. The spirit was radiating a potent and pure light attributed Esper, a very dense one at that. Not to mention, he could feel a warm and fuzzy feeling just being near the spirit. It was truly a spirit of light. "Well done, Evelyn," Sigfor patted her shoulder as he congratulated her. "Thank you, Elder," she bowed and thanked him. Turning around, she smiled and looked at Oliver. "It's your turn now." Oliver smiled as well. He did not know what he was going to summon. It might become quite interesting. He smirked as he slowly stepped inside the array. He was eager to see what he could summon. Chapter 163. Now close your eyes and focus. Sigfor's voice came out as Oliver closed his eyes and started to concentrate. The air around him seemed to hum with energy as his surroundings blurred and transformed. A sensation of weightlessness enveloped him, and he knew he had entered the spirit realm. The moment Oliver closed his eyes, his surroundings changed. He was instantly connected to the spirit realm, matching the speed Evelyn had displayed earlier, maybe a bit faster. A faint hum resonated in his ears, the energy of the spirit realm enveloping him. Is this the spirit realm? He opened his eyes and thought. Opening his eyes, he was met with a mesmerizing sight. Countless colorful lights floated in the hazy expanse, each one pulsating with a life of its own. Are they spirits? He wondered, feeling a mix of awe and trepidation. He wondered. Should I reach out to them? Hesitation gripped him for a moment, but curiosity and determination pushed it aside. He looked at the countless lights. He was not sure how to attract them towards him. The elder said to do what he felt was right. He stretched his hand towards the brilliant lights and he paused as a huge blue-colored ball was speeding towards him. No, not one but a tsunami of blue-colored balls of light were speeding towards him. A massive blue orb hurtled towards him, followed by a wave of similar orbs. His eyes widened as he subconsciously took a step back. Was this the normal setting? Wait, was it even safe in the first place? As he felt the countless balls of blue lights approaching him, he weighed his choices to whether run away from them or stay still and let them approach him. In the end, he stood rooted on the spot and let the spirits approach him. However, something unexpected happened as soon as they came in 1 meter radius of him. To his surprise, the blue lights halted just before reaching him, then scattered as if repelled. He looked at the scene confusedly, wondering what was wrong with these spirits. Weren't they quite excited to approach him a second ago, so why were they running away now as if they had seen a ghost? He looked around but there seemed to be nothing around. What's going on? He thought as he walked up to the nearest cluster of colorful brilliant lights. He observed closely as he walked towards the cluster of lights. He could see it shifting away, backing out from him as soon as he was close to them. What? He let out a small voice as he reached up to more clusters but the result remained the same. He tried approaching spirits of ice element, but still the same result. He even tried reaching out to the other elemental spirits but the end output remained similar, all of them backed away as soon as he neared them. A vein popped on his forehead as took in the disrespect from these balls of light. Confusion clouded his mind. Why are they avoiding me? He thought, approaching another cluster, only to watch them retreat as well. If this continued, wouldn't he have to return without summoning a spirit? No, he can't have that. If they won't come to him then he would go to them. If they won't follow him obediently then he could only resort to force. So be it. He said as he sped up towards a nearby cluster. The cluster of balls, seemingly afraid of something, tried to run away too, however it was too late. Oliver had already reached up to them using his enhanced speed. He instantly stretched out his hand up to the spirits, grasping them within his palms. However, the spirits simply slipped through his fingers like water, taking him off guard. How do I catch them? He groaned and thought. Frustration was welling up inside him. His eyes narrowed. It looked like he should use that. A dark thought crossed his mind. If I can't summon them, I'll force them. He grabbed onto another fleeting energy as a reddish-black aura began to ooze from his hand. Instantly, all the spirits in proximity trembled as the abyssal energy was released. The air around him grew colder, the very essence of darkness seeping into the atmosphere. He felt the spirit in his grasp struggle frantically, trying to escape, but the abyssal energy held it firmly. It struggled in vain, and soon it was completely devoured by the darkness. A faint, echoing scream was swallowed by the abyss, leaving only silence in its wake. As he wondered what might change, something happened when he finished devouring the spirit. It was as if the spirit was a trigger. An influx of unknown knowledge that he could not decode revealed itself, displaying a torrent of information. Symbols and ancient runes flashed before his eyes, each one burning into his mind with searing clarity. He stood motionless, eyes fixed on the ceiling, as he processed the new insights. Time seemed to stretch endlessly until, finally, he tilted his head back and looked down at his hand. The reddish-black aura still lingered, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. So it's like this, he muttered. According to the information he had received, he would not be able to summon a spirit ever due to being the circuit of abyss. Spirits were nothing but nourishment for him at this point. But something else had also unlocked for him in exchange for not being able to summon spirits. Anti-spirits. Anti-spirits are entities born from the abyss, designed to counter and destroy regular spirits. They are manifestations of dark energy, a representation of death. Their forms were shadows, flickering and shifting, filled with a cold, consuming hunger. Unlike regular spirits, anti-spirits are tethered to his will, making them extensions of his power. Chapter 164. Unlike regular spirits, anti-spirits are tethered to his will, making them extensions of his power. Which basically means that unlike regular spirits, which might have their own consciousness or require a contract, anti-spirits are extensions of the summoner's power and obey his commands without question. They are bound to his will and cannot act independently. This connection ensured that the summoner has complete control over their actions and abilities. Just as there is matter in the universe, with its opposing force being antimatter, there are spirits, ethereal beings of light and energy, countered by anti-spirits, dark entities born from the abyss. While spirits embody harmony and life, anti-spirits are manifestations of chaos and death. They are the shadows cast by the light, existing to counterbalance and consume the energies of their brighter counterparts. Where spirits thrive on purity and connection, anti-spirits draw power from the void, tethered to the summoner's will and feeding on the essence of the spirits they devour. He could feel the dark energy thrumming through his veins, a part of him now more than ever. If spirits were affiliated with the heavens, then anti-spirits were associated with the abyss. The more spirits he consumes, the stronger his anti-spirits become. This creates a continuous cycle of power, as each defeated spirit enhances his abyssal spirit's abilities. However, summoning them comes at a cost. Prolonged use can strain the summoner's body and mind, leading to physical and mental fatigue. His head throbbed slightly, a reminder of the toll this power could take. In a fight, he would have to be cautious not to harm himself unintentionally instead. However, now that I am here. He paused, glancing around at the countless clusters of light. Why don't I make use of it? His voice was calm, but his eyes gleamed with a dark determination. His eyes turned cold as a storm of abyss energy started to brew behind him. The space trembled, trying to hold on to the manifestation of the abyss. A low, ominous rumble echoed through the realm, the very fabric of reality seeming to stretch and twist. The spirit clusters burst, scattering in a direction as far as possible from him. Panic rippled through the spirits, their once serene forms now flickering with fear. He did not stand by and followed after as many spirits as he saw. His movements were swift, precise, the abyssal energy trailing behind him like a shadow. Swish! What transpired next was a mass of reddish-black energy devouring countless colorful balls of light. Each spirit he consumed added to the growing storm of power around him, the reddish darkness becoming more intense with every passing moment. Time flowed by, and he lost track of time as he hunted down any spirits he saw. It was a pity that this place only held the partial spirits. He would have loved to try against a true spirit. However, the abundance of the partial spirits made up for that. Just like that, more and more time passed, and in the end, he finally stopped. His breath came in ragged gasps, the exertion of his power taking its toll. As far as he could see, all he could see now was pitch-black darkness. The earlier space, which was filled with countless bright lights, was now a black realm devoid of light. The oppressive silence now heavy on his shoulders, the once vibrant realm now eerily still. I can't go on any more like this. He frowned and muttered to himself. This was as far as he could go. All the spirits in this space had mostly been devoured by him, while some of them escaped far away, so he did not chase them too far. Plus, he felt a restriction on him when he reached a certain point. No matter what, it seemed that he was unable to cross a specific point. An invisible barrier pulsed at the edge of his consciousness, warning him of the limits of his current power. It was as if the place, the realm, was able to recognize his abilities and stopped him from going any further. He did not push it either, he was not overconfident in his abilities. He had only devoured the partial spirits, after all. He could feel the growth in his abyss energy too. What Oliver did not know was that these partial spirits were quite powerful, and no normal kid would be able to hunt them down as he was doing. In fact, even proper exorcists would find it difficult to capture spirits. After making sure there was nothing else to do anymore, he simply focused inside himself and started to leave the spirit realm. He could not summon an abyssal creature into this world. Not only would it be extremely dangerous, but it could also get him into a lot of trouble with his body and others. The thought of the chaos and destruction such a creature could cause made him shudder. Soon, his body disappeared, and he opened his eyes back in the mountain hall. But something was strange. Except for the elder, there was no one else present. The hall was eerily quiet, the faint light casting long shadows of the pillars across the room. Damn brat, finally finished? Sigfur said in a heavy voice. Oliver looked at him confusedly. Elder, what do you mean? Where's everyone? I dismissed them since you were taking so long. Long? Wait, what does that even mean? How long do you think you have been in the spirit realm? Sigfur questioned him instead of answering. The elder's eyes were tired, a hint of impatience in his tone. Well, maybe 2 hours? Huh? 2 hours, seriously? Sigfur pinched his brows in frustration. It's been over 5 days. What? How? Oliver lost his composure and asked wide-eyed. He could not believe that he had spent 5 whole days in that place. His mind reeled, trying to grasp the enormity of lost time. What's going on? How can it be 5 days? He could not believe that hunting spirits would take so much time. In that dark realm, he really lost the sense of time. How would I know? Sigfur snorted and then asked, Did you manage to get a spirit? Chapter 165. Did you manage to get a spirit? He looked seriously annoyed. After all, he had not moved from his position in the past 5 days, carefully watching over him so as to ensure that nothing dangerous would happen. Well, I did not. Oliver scratched the back of his head and said, a little embarrassed. Sigfur shook his head and sighed. I expected as much. It does not take such a long time for anyone to summon a partial spirit. Forget it, looks like even geniuses have their limits. Haha. Oliver laughed dryly. I will leave then. You rest and join the others for training afterward. They have been training all this time, so make sure to catch up to them. Thank you, Elder, for your patience. Oliver bowed and thanked Sigfur. No matter how grumpy the old elder was, he still waited and watched over for him patiently for 5 whole days. Sigfur waved his hand and left the room. He was tired too from continuously being on guard for him. Damn, that's a lot of time. I should be more careful of spirit realms next time. The perception of time and distortion is not proportional to this, he mumbled to himself as he stared at his hand. The faint traces of abyssal energy still lingered, a reminder of the power and the cost. For some reason, a sudden ominous feeling filled his heart. It was as if something bad was about to happen. He quickly got out of the array and looked at the entrance of the mountain hall. The heavy doors loomed before him, casting long shadows in the dim light. His heart could not help but suddenly beat faster. What is this bad feeling? He frowned. The hall was wide open, with grass yards around on all three sides except the back, which led to another deeper space. This hall was basically the entrance to the mountain base. But they were in the middle of nowhere at the moment, so why was he feeling this sinking feeling? He took a deep breath. The surroundings were eerily quiet. Even the usual chirping of birds and rustling of leaves seemed absent, adding to the sense of unease. He waited. A few minutes passed, but nothing happened. However, the feeling never left his chest. He went forward, nearing the entrance of the hall, which led to the outside. Stepping outside, he saw the familiar stone statues and a huge iron gate. Beyond that was vast and empty land covered in fog. The fog swirled lazily, obscuring the path and giving the area an otherworldly appearance. Is this feeling my imagination or what? He pondered as he surveyed the area. Upon finding nothing for the next few minutes, he exhaled and went back inside. The tension in his shoulders eased slightly, but the unease still lingered. Whatever it was that he was feeling, they were safe inside this hall as long as Sigfur was with them. Although Allison was not present at the moment, Sigfur was a veteran exorcist himself, so he should be able to keep them safe in case they were in danger. Not to mention, how could someone be in this place? This place had an array of illusions surrounding it, and unless someone knew the direct route to the mountain, they would not be able to come to this place at all. Most likely a stray beast or maybe a stray ghost. Oliver thought about how it might be that. He shook his head, trying to dispel the lingering sense of dread. They could end up near this place by chance, it would not be surprising. For the time being, he returned to the dorm to rest. In the upcoming few weeks, they trained harder than ever. Sigfur would have them spar with each other continuously, and sometimes he would take them all on himself at once. While Oliver might not have the advantage of a spirit, he was still capable of being their equal with his monstrous strength. This revelation hit some of them quite hard. Alfonso, who had been thinking that he might finally get an edge over Oliver, was extremely disheartened when Oliver was able to maintain an upper hand throughout their spar. Not to mention hitting him once, Alfonso was not even able to touch him despite having his speed increased by the wind element and spirit. Amber was also not faring well. She could clearly feel the vast gap she had to cross if she desired to be at his level and make herself more recognizable. Her frustration was evident, but it also fueled her determination to improve. She also got serious in her training. Slowly but surely, her thinking was also changing. Instead of relying on her tools, she was starting to be independent with her own power, using various weapons. From gauntlets to great swords, she continued switching weapons, alternating between the two as she liked them the most so far. Her defense was pretty high compared to others, thanks to the earth element and her summoned spirit. Even Oliver had a hard time breaching her defenses. Nadia and Oliver were pretty much on equal terms now. While Oliver had a great advantage in strength, stamina, and speed, Nadia effectively used the ice element to counter his inhuman body powers. His water elemental attacks would instantly turn into ice the moment they reached her surroundings. The ground around her would often be covered in a thin layer of frost, a signal to her growing control over her element. The most growth someone showed was none other than Evelyn. She was literally besting everyone else with her light attribute and spirit. Oliver was also starting to take her seriously. Both of them used katanas, but her skills with the katana were far better than his. Her strikes were fluid and precise, each one carrying the force of her intense training. He was also avoiding depending on his aspera, all he was doing was using his strength only. Chapter 166. He had yet to get any rewards related to katanas or similar weapons, so he was using it as much as he knew about a rapier. He and she were fighting toe-to-toe. Next was Daniel, and Oliver had to admit that he was the best and most skilled with weapons. Despite not being on their level, he was able to contend with all of them. And with his thunder spirit, his speed and power were unparalleled now, even more so than Alfonso with his wind spirit. Clang! Oliver blocked an incoming sword strike towards his chest. Clang! He pressed forward, pushing the sword away from him and attacking the opponent. His movements were swift and calculated, each strike delivered with precision. It was Daniel whom he was sparring with. The usual mischief on his face was replaced by a certain seriousness as he swung his weapon. The intensity in his eyes was unmistakable, a fierce determination driving his every move. Oliver could not help but secretly exclaim at the change on this guy's face. He rarely saw such an expression on his face. "You're wide open," Daniel said as he swung the hilt of his sword at Oliver's blind spot, near his hip. Ugh dash! Oliver retreated. So far, only Daniel had ever managed to hit him, other than Bella and Nadia. He smiled. "You're indeed interesting. I rarely ever see you with such seriousness." Daniel's expression did not falter as he readied his sword once again. He said, "Focus on the spar. I know you are holding back, and it is making me angry." His eyes glinted fiercely, the grip on the sword in his hands tightening. The air around them seemed to vibrate with the intensity of their confrontation, each poised for the next move. "Give me your all. I don't care what happens next, I want it. I want to experience the strength of someone way above me in talent despite being my peer." He lunged forward, again aiming for Oliver's blind spot. However, this time Oliver twisted his hand and parried the strike without even moving from his spot. He smiled wryly as he looked at Daniel's angry look. Daniel wanted him to give his all. How should he tell him that if he really went all out, he might not survive for even a second? That would truly break his spirit if he said that. He had been refraining from using Aspera or any artifact, all he was relying on was his brute strength. "Don't insult me," Daniel roared as he saw him smiling wryly. He wildly swung his sword, wanting Oliver to be more serious with him. However, he was unable to hit him even once. It almost looked like the earlier hit he had given him was through a stroke of luck or Oliver's deliberate approach to get hit once. His eyes were slowly turning bloodshot. He really hated it when others underestimated him. It felt disrespectful to him. Gritting his teeth, his sword moved like a python, flexible and agile, wanting to strike the target, but the latter was just like a wall. No matter how or where he was hit, there was no effect. Amber, who was watching this duel from the side, could not help but clench the bottle of water in her hand. "He's doing this again," she whispered to herself in a strained voice. She could barely keep up with their movements using her eyes. But seeing Daniel's struggling expression, his bloodshot eyes, and his remarks, she felt a resonance with him. Was he feeling the same way as her? Was Oliver like this to others too? While he spoke to them normally and praised their abilities, his eyes never held even a flicker of interest or curiosity towards them and their abilities. She could see it, his lack of interest, that boredom whenever he sparred with them. He did not feel the same way as them. She considered herself a good judge of others' intentions. She knew she was just a kid and was getting ahead of herself by claiming to be experienced in such things, but she really was. At least she considered herself to be. However immature she may be to others, but to herself, she was someone who could tell how the other person was feeling towards her. Even if she was wrong, continuous interactions with Oliver and her keen observation of him and his eyes made her more sure about her conclusions. She had sparred with others too, but never once had she seen them make such an expression. She loathed this side of Oliver. "Oliver!" a voice yelled. Oliver paused as he looked ahead. Daniel was sweating profusely, his eyes were red, cheeks flushed as he panted. "Give me your best for once," he roared again. "If you are my friend, from this moment forth, you will give your all." Daniel gave the ultimatum, his tone was heavy as he poured out his emotions. He no longer cared. He considered Oliver his close pal, they had gone through a lot together. He wanted to be serious with him no matter what. He brought his sword close to his chest as he aligned the sword in a vertical pose. It looked as if he was going to use a sword art. I will now be using a sword technique I cherish. If you really consider me your friend, reply to me with your sword. Oliver looked at this scene and sighed. He knew Daniel was not the type to care about anything. He only cared about swords, duels, and power. He was a simple-minded individual. Fine. Oliver lowered his katana, his eyes turned serious. Come at me. Daniel, who saw this, could not help but smile. His grip on the sword turned stronger. Finally. His eyes focused as he recited the movements of the sword art he cherished. Chapter 167. He took a deep breath and exhaled. In the next instant, he moved, slowly at first, to his right but then back to his left. His movements were slow and easy to see. A footwork? Oliver narrowed his eyes as he saw Daniel moving in an unrecognizable pattern. Oliver tightened his grip on his katana, readying himself for the next attack. The air between them grew thick with tension. He observed how his speed started to increase as he kept moving from one position to another. Interesting. Even with his enhanced senses, he was starting to get confused by Daniel's movements as Daniel sped up. Of course, he was not using his special eyes at the moment but normal vision. Soon, it started to become harder and harder to keep up with his movements. This technique is called 1,000 provisions. It gives the opponent a taste of 1,000 sword moves all instilled in a single strike. Daniel's voice came out as he moved faster and faster. Get ready to have a taste of my favorite sword art. Oliver's eyes wavered slightly. The name of the technique sent a shiver of excitement down his spine, but he remained focused, every muscle in his body taut with anticipation. Daniel circled around Oliver, who was watching closer than ever. His steps were unordered and weird as he ran in circles around him. No, can't find the pattern at all. Oliver had a thoughtful look on his face as he could not find a specific pattern in Daniel's movement to exploit an opening. It won't work like that. He calmed down, relaxing his posture. He straightened his slightly hunched back. A faint smile tugged at the corner of Oliver's lips, a rare show of confidence. Daniel, who was waiting to find a spot to attack, narrowed his eyes as he saw the sudden relaxed posture Oliver had taken. He was a bit confused about what the latter was doing in such a critical moment. It was then he heard Oliver say something. Do you know? I happen to have a footwork technique as well. Daniel's brows furrowed when he heard that. So this guy had been hiding a footwork technique too. Just how much is he holding back? Oliver, on the other hand, looked at the running figure in circles as he took a stance as well. He was going to use a technique he had mastered a long time ago. While incomplete, he had enough mastery over it to make up for it at the moment, at least for this duel. The memories of countless hours of training flashed through Oliver's mind, grounding him. Daniel's frown deepened when he saw Oliver moving in a familiar foot pattern. 6 thoughtful steps of the spirits, he was instantly able to recognize the familiar footwork given the number of techniques he had learned since he was able to walk. Why is he using that basic foot technique right now? Does he think he can best me with such a basic technique? Daniel observed deeply while maintaining his own movements and speed. My technique is clearly superior, so why is his figure turning distant? Daniel pondered as his heart raced. The world seemed to blur around Daniel as he struggled to keep his focus solely on Oliver. With every moment passing by, Oliver's figure turned into a blur until it finally vanished from the spot. What? Where did he go? He panicked, and his eyes darted around, trying to immediately search for him. Where is he? The moment he thought that, a familiar voice echoed in his ears from behind. Are you looking for me? Clang. Daniel heard the voice and did not hesitate. He swung his sword down, a tremendous force behind that strike. He utilized all his power to execute the 1,000 provisions technique. However, contrary to his high expectations, what happened next shook him to the core. Oliver did not dodge it but blocked his strike with his katana. The impact reverberated through the air, the sheer force of it making the ground beneath them tremble, spewing dust cloud all over. Crazy. His voice leaked out subconsciously, impressed by what he saw. The force behind that strike was extraordinary. It specifically brought out his body's inner strength in that move. Oliver had to be at least thrice as strong as him physically to even dare to block that attack. Just how strong are you? He looked into Oliver's calm eyes and felt his own eyes tremble. They were as calm as water and as deep as an ocean. At this moment, Oliver truly felt like a mountain stretching towards the heavens. I have to surpass him. However, even in the face of that realization, Daniel's resolve stood unshaken. He was going to do whatever it required to surpass that mountain reaching the heavens. Arf dash. Daniel groaned and forced himself as he swung down the sword again. This time Oliver did not delay any longer but instead directly punched Daniel in the stomach. Coup dash. Daniel coughed hard as he was sent flying back. Bam. He crashed straight into the stone wall behind them before he fell down. Oliver had won. However, at this moment, he was looking down at his wrist, it was trembling hard. His gaze trailed up to the fallen boy who had caused this, and a smile appeared on his face. Not bad. He had never felt like this. At that moment, his heart felt excited as he took Daniel's sword attack. It was a feeling he had not felt since he had fought with the pair of siblings back then. He has a lot of potential. Oliver made a note. If he is allowed to grow stronger, he could become quite useful in fighting against demons in the future. Perhaps Evelyn might not have to suffer as much as she did alone? An array of possibilities opened up in his mind as he imagined such a future. But for that to happen, they would need to survive the perpetual plane. Only then would they have a chance. Chapter 168. He shook his head and went up to the guy fallen on the ground, breathing heavily. It was a great match, said Oliver as he extended his hand forward. Here, take it. Daniel chuckled painfully, fuck yes. It was the most awesome match I ever had. He took Oliver's hand as he got up with some difficulty. You are crazy, dude. Daniel said as his smile broadened. Never ever have I seen someone directly receive the strike from 1,000 provisions, head on. Is that so? Oliver nodded. You don't think? My father, who has mastered this technique, slayed 10,000 demons with one move of his using this same technique. Oliver shivered slightly as he imagined the full power of such a terrifying strike. He was really tempted to bind with Daniel, however the system did not recognize him as a suitable target. It was highly likely due to the fact that Daniel had originally died in the perpetual plane. Maybe changing that future might change this situation too? If possible, he would really like to have a strong weapon technique from the Sacred Swords clan, the master of weapons. After all, they had some of the best weapon techniques in the whole world. Oliver helped Daniel back to the chairs to rest. He could feel the others looking at him dazedly, he could only shake his head. Oliver, was that 6 thoughtful steps of spirit? Evelyn came to him and asked, she was curious. I am curious about it too. Daniel could not help but add, he was amazed how proficient Oliver. That footwork? That's right, it was that, he replied simply. What? How is that possible? I also have learned that footwork, it's just a common and basic footwork, how can it be so powerful to match up with 1,000 provisions, technique? Daniel almost would have stood up if he could, but his body barely responded at the moment. Seeing his surprised face, Oliver pondered whether he should tell him how wrong he was about the footwork or not. The 6 thoughtful steps of spirit was an incomplete footwork technique. The original footwork was extremely powerful, literally giving insane speeds to the individual. Nonetheless, it was not a trash technique at all. But he still had to say something. He looked towards the eager Daniel and said in a serious tone. Daniel, he started, no technique in this world is weak, it's the user who is weak due to which the technique cannot realize its full potential. That's what my father said too. Daniel stuttered as his eyes widened in disbelief. So from now on, I am your dad. Huh, what? Daniel asked as he could not just comprehend what was said. Nothing. Oliver laughed and dismissed it. But still, thanks to you, I have now realized my mistakes. Thank you very much, Oliver. Daniel bowed deeply as he gave a heartfelt thanks. What did you understand? Oliver asked, curious that if Daniel had enlightenment, he might hear it as well. It might come in handy at some time. No technique is inherently weak, it is we, the practitioner, where the true fault actually lies within. I heard the same thing from my father, but I had forgotten about it. However, after hearing from you, I have now realized how important this was. Daniel looked at his longsword as he said this while seemingly lost in deep thought. As practitioners, it is our responsibility to master the technique to its full potential. If the technique seems weak, then it simply means that we are not looking at it correctly. That's not what it should mean. Oliver looked at him, speechless at how he had concluded this from his words. However, Daniel wasn't finished yet. If we aren't able to bring out the technique's true potential, we simply need to improve the technique itself. Daniel concluded in a resolute tone. Ah, that does sound like a great point, Daniel. Evelyn nodded in understanding. I know, right? From now on, I will never forget any advice I hear from my father. What a filial son. Oliver patted his friend's shoulder and nodded. Anyways, I'll go rest now. Alfonso, mind escorting him back to his room? I don't think he has any energy left to walk his way out. Oliver turned to look at Alfonso, who was reading a thin booklet about runes. Apparently, it was something he had been rewarded by Sig for back then. Sure, leave it to me. Thanks, dude, Daniel thanked him from afar. Alfonso closed the book and stored it back into his storage ring and gave Daniel his shoulder, leaving the room with him. Hey Nadia, how about we spar again? I really like your techniques and tactics. Evelyn approached Nadia, who was sitting alone in a corner with an emotionless expression on her face. Nadia glanced at her, contemplating. Nadia, you should. Your control over the ice element is beautiful. I want to observe it again too. Amber joined them from behind, encouraging her. Fine, Nadia said just one word before getting up and walking towards the stage. Oliver sighed. Over the few days, he had tried his best to let other girls approach Nadia and become familiar with her. She really deserved friends, and despite her cold demeanor, he believed that with the help of gradual interactions with others, she might change slightly. To be honest, he could already see some changes. Earlier, she wouldn't talk with others for even a moment, but now she would at least reply to them and engage with them for a few moments. Although it wasn't too big of an improvement, it was still better. Part of him also wanted to show his previous display of strength to motivate Nadia to work harder. As they were instructed by the clan elder, Nadia needed to establish her dominance over the other clan heirs, but her indifferent attitude made that naturally impossible. And it was far better for her to make friends rather than make subordinates. He feared that if she was left alone, Nadia's mental state might turn into something worse. Chapter 169. Oliver was worried that if she was left alone, Nadia's mental state might turn into something worse. Just the image of his mother, Ophelia, was enough to shake him. Ophelia had long abandoned her human psyche and had adopted an inhuman mentality, as far as he knew. He could not let a little girl like Nadia become something like that. Of course, preventing that from happening was still a far-fetched idea. He knew he wasn't capable enough to stop Ophelia from tampering with Nadia right now. But planting some seeds of humanity in her mind was still better than nothing. The future was unpredictable, after all. It changed continuously. Underscore 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 underscore. He soon returned to his room and took out the potions he had stored in his mind space. He then started drinking them one by one to temper his aspera and refine it further. I am almost out of potions now. Apart from a few healing potions, I don't have anything left, he thought. Oliver had been continuously stocking his supplies by exchanging pills and potions with others in exchange for food. Of course, his rations had long run out of stock, but thanks to Sigfur, he could sustain. Sigfur had told them to cook for themselves if they wanted to eat something, but since the old man didn't know how to cook despite being as old as a tree, he would eat with Oliver. Not to mention the fact that he rarely felt hungry and didn't mind living without food, unlike them. Oliver had a functioning kitchen in his area along with the fresh ingredients Sigfur had brought to use or eat raw, to be specific. Initially, Sigfur intended for them to consume raw fruits and vegetables to sate their hunger. However, how could the posh clan heirs be able to live such a life? They were used to delicate, full-course meals every day. There was no way that they could sustain a raw diet every day. But everyone knew that Oliver could cook, so no matter how it was, all the chores automatically fell to him. Thus, he took on the role of being the group's cook, their personal chef. However, since he couldn't do it for free, he would charge them something in return for meals every day since they ate the food he would make. It worked well for some months, but now they were also running out of potions and pills to trade. After all, even if they might have stocked for themselves, who would have expected that it would be shared with Oliver in the end? Anything else that remained in their storage artifacts was too precious to be traded for mere food. So even Oliver was helpless and just cooked for them occasionally without asking anything in return. No matter how mature they thought and acted, in the end, they were still kids. Also, they were his friends, right? Right. Do I really consider them as my friends? Oliver thought as he lay on his bed, staring at the wooden ceiling, lost in thought. He never really considered them as friends if he had to say it honestly. At most, he considered them as useful human resources that could help out humanity in the future war against demons. He helped Nadia in order for her to become stronger than she could as she was in the novel. So, was it right for him to call them his friends? It's too complex, I will think about it later. He yawned and closed his eyes. He was going to sleep for some time. Underscore 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 underscore. We are ready, leader. Have you located the barrier's weak spot? Yes, we have found it, and it should now be easy to infiltrate. Well done. Outside, far from the mountain hall, stood a man dressed in pitch-black robes. He was standing idle, talking to his subordinates. He was none other than the leader of the heretic group who had come to retrieve the egg of the disaster beast. He was behind the group, preparing a killer array to engage Sigfur, whose presence he had faintly felt. To further confirm his suspicions about the expert inside the mountain hall, he had his subordinates check on it discreetly over the weeks. Being so close to the barrier, there was no way any of them would miss sensing the presence of such an entity. They were all carrying stealth artifacts they had received from the sect. Even a rank 3 expert might not be able to sense their presence. Alright then, the moment I attack the barrier and draw out the experts, you will infiltrate the hall and get the egg of the disaster beast. Remember, either you succeed or don't come back, he said in a chilling voice. There was a momentary silence on the other side of the phone before a voice responded. Yes, leader. He put the communicator down and looked in front of him. On the ground just next to his feet was a large runic array pulsing with a very dark aura. It was suffocating to look at, and all sorts of extremely complex runes were etched onto its surface. There was an occasional flash of bloody red light in the various runes, indicating its deadly nature. No doubt this was an extremely dangerous array. Just the amount of aura gathering near it was terrifyingly huge. Even he, who was as strong as a rank 3 exorcist, had to wait for weeks to prepare the array and supply it with the necessary aura. From my observations, the expert exorcist inside should also be rank 3, but just in case, I prepared this array if they turn out to be more powerful than expected. As long as they are not a rank 4 exorcist, they will definitely be wounded badly, the man spoke sinisterly as his eyes gleamed with black aura. He was able to observe the massive barrier surrounding the whole mountain. Whoever cast this barrier is definitely a high-level expert in array formations, he thought as he looked at the barrier deeply from outside. Chapter 170. It might be someone from the Forging Association or one of the 5 major clans. Other than them, there's hardly anyone with such a level of barrier-making skills. It might be a talisman master. The black-robed leader judged keenly as the array behind him pulsed more terribly. He took out a talisman from his pocket. The talisman was made out of black paper. It had something written on it with red ink, which was not really ink but blood. It's time we claim what belongs to us. May there be eternal glory for demons. His eyes turned maniacal as he incited the Aspera into action, activating the black talisman. The talisman trembled violently before an eerie Aspera leaked out from it like black ink from a fountain pen. The talisman vibrated and instantly headed toward the direction of the barrier. The air around the leader seemed to shimmer with dark energy, his expression growing more twisted with anticipation. All the while, the leader's eyes did not waver as he looked at the flying talisman with sinister eyes. It's been a while since I killed a high-ranking exorcist. My hands thirst for your potent blood, he said in a monotonic voice as he watched the scene. Are you kidding me, you old elder, I clearly scored the victory here. Daniel said disdainfully as he was declared the loser again. They had been gathered together and were playing chess, however, Sigvar had declared his move foul and directly eliminated him. Not only had Daniel moved his king piece despite it being under check, but he had also been trying to draw out a stalemate against his opponent. You brat. Today, I will teach you a lesson and correct your foul tongue. Sigvar also rolled up his sleeves as he was ready to teach this cheating little brat a lesson for good. Daniel clearly did not know how to play chess and yet dared to question him, who knew all the rules. Elder, please calm down. Daniel, quick. Apologize. Alfonso tried to soothe things out as he panicked at the situation. Humph. What did I do wrong? If a king can be stopped like this, then how is it still a king? It's so useless. You tell me, why is that? Also, isn't this pawn behind another pawn practically useless too? Always getting sacrificed for his comrade? Get aside, or else I will beat you too. No, please, elder. Calm your anger. Daniel is just ignorant. What? Why am I being called ignorant? Who even made this game? Daniel frowned and pestered Alfonso. Oliver was watching the drama unfold while chewing on a piece of apple. However, his expression was not too good. The bad feeling in his chest had intensified a lot, but he could not point it out. Everything was going so smoothly, so why was he feeling this way? The laughter and chatter around him felt distant, like an echo from another world, as his instincts screamed of impending danger. The girls were also watching with interest. As I keep saying, you brats are. Sigvar suddenly paused in the middle of what he was speaking. He turned his head abruptly in the direction of the mountain hall. His expression changed drastically. A terrifying aura emerged from his body, stunning everyone in the group. Get back to your dorms. There's someone attacking the barrier. His extremely serious words rang in the ears of the shocked group. They watched with confused and shocked gazes as Sigvar disappeared from his spot after leaving them with his serious words. Just a moment ago, they were playing peacefully, and all of a sudden, he became serious and left. Oliver, who heard this, had a heavy frown on his forehead. As I thought, that ominous feeling was not for nothing. He knew it was serious just by looking at Sigvar's attitude. Not only that, he was also aware of how isolated this mountain was and how hidden they were from the world. For someone to locate this place and launch an attack, what did this mean? Even a child could understand the situation. But what was nagging him the most was the thought of who could be the attacker. For Sigvar to personally leave them alone and go outside to deal with it simply meant that the attacker was a dangerous element that could or held the means to bypass the strong barrier placed on the entire mountain. And for someone to deliberately target the mountain with such a strong barrier at this time when Allison was away meant that they had planned this thoroughly. Is it a coincidence that the attack happened while we were here or? Oliver thought deeply. Or is this a plot to eliminate the potential heirs of the 5 major clans at once? Oliver's mind raced wildly as he considered many possibilities. Did someone in the clan do this? Was there a traitor among the elders who gave away the information? He thought with a frown. The bad feeling inside his chest was his instincts warning him repeatedly of the danger. That only meant that this matter was not so simple. Why would someone attack from the front so openly if they wanted to assassinate us? Sigfur immediately went outside, then it could only mean they had done something huge that drew his attention to the extent that he was forced to leave personally rather than ensuring our safety first. And that's probably what the enemy wanted as well, he thought deeply. All his conclusions and deductions so far pointed to one thing only. The enemies have already infiltrated inside through the barrier.